Well, hello, darlings. I'm so glad you could join me in the kitchen. Tonight we're going to be cooking up a course of halibut. So why don't you grab yourself a glass of wine or a good cold beer and join me here for dinner. What else have you got to do this evening? Alright, well that filter was fun, wasn't it? I felt like one of those old school Hollywood movie stars, you know. Anyway, hi, it's Patsy. Welcome back to my kitchen. Tonight we are going to be cooking halibut, and I want to show you how easy it is, again, to throw together a great meal in less than an hour for your family. Now tonight it's going to be a small meal that could feed one plus leftovers for the next day or a couple. So, but you could take this recipe and expand it to feed an entire family. You would just need more portions, of course, of fish and bigger portions of asparagus. But it's very simple, very easy. A lot of people are cooking variations of this recipe. I have my little spin on it that I love, so I'm going to share it with you. Do you notice my pants? Look at this. What? Look at these pants, y'all. These are my Christmas pants. Yes, I wear these 365 days a year. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, let's get to cooking. Okay, so y'all forgive my noisy ceiling fan. It is like crickety for some reason today. I have no idea why. But anyway, for this recipe, you're of course going to need halibut. Now, normally I would say go to the store, your fish market, wherever, get fresh halibut. Anytime I do something, I would prefer fresh versus anything else. Frozen fish, yeah, you could use it. To me, it just doesn't turn out the same. I don't know, there's something about it, and it could be mind over matter for me. But it just doesn't feel like it turns out the same to me. So I didn't get a chance to go by the fish market, so I just ran up to Publix and got some halibut from there. It is a thinner cut of halibut, unfortunately for me, because I love fish and really like to sink my teeth into some fish, but I'm gonna roll with it and work with it. You're also going to need some tomatoes. Now, I got these from Publix. It's the Wild Wonders. I like these because they have the different color variations in there, and they're tiny. But if you don't have these, you can use cherry tomatoes. I do not recommend getting like a big boy tomato or any of the bigger tomatoes and just cutting those up. It doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't work as well as having the cherry tomato or the colored variation. You're also going to need some red wine vinegar. Now, I am out of red wine vinegar, but that's an easy fix. I just have some red cooking wine and some vinegar. I'm going to combine those to make my red wine vinegar. You're also going to need some garlic and some shallots. You will need some extra virgin olive oil, some salt, some pepper, and believe it or not, don't judge me, you're going to need some honey. And then I use some thyme and some dill. So those things are basically what you're going to need to make the halibut meal itself. Okay, so you want your oven preheated to 400 degrees, and you're going to need, depending on how much fish you're using, of course, your baking pan. So I am using my Enameled cast iron baking pan by Pampered Chef. These things are amazing. They are durable, they're high quality, and I just love them. So I'm going to be using one this size because I'm just doing 2 portions of fish. All right, so you're going to want to cut your tomatoes in half. And like I said, I bought the colored variation of tomatoes, and I went ahead and pre-chopped those here. And basically you want to, let me turn this around so you can actually see. That might help, huh? Look, nobody said I was a filmmaker, so just roll with it, okay? But I've got my tomatoes already chopped in half, so I'm going to add them to my pan. Now, to that, you'll want to add a shallot, or you can add 2. It just kind of depends on how much onion you like. I like onion, so I would personally add more, but just for the purpose of this recipe, I'm going to cut up 1 shallot. Now, when you cut the shallot, there's no finessing to it. You can dice them up or however you want them. I'm simply going to slice them in half, or slice it in half, and then slice it in thin slices. So I'll just cut it in half and then just cut along those slices to use. So let me get this cut up, and I'll be right back. All right, so to this, we're going to add some olive oil. Now, I always like to promote my local or regional favorites. This olive oil is Valdosta extra virgin olive oil. It is made here locally by an olive farm. When they have, a good batch, they make seasonal olive oil, and it has an amazing flavor. So I will include their link to their Facebook page below. You can check them out. Again, the olive oil is seasonal. However, if they have some in stock, they do ship. I talked to the owner, and she said that they do ship, so they can send some out to you if they still have some in stock. But if not, tag them on, mark them on Facebook and save it for next year and order some of their local olive oil. So I already actually added a tablespoon in there. I'm going to add, I'm trying to finish out this little bottle I got left so I can refill it. Add in another tablespoon of olive oil. And that does that bottle. So let me grab the other one. So I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here. All right, so I am going to add about a tablespoon of garlic. Now you can use as much or as little as you like when it comes to garlic, because garlic is good for you. Some people don't like the flavor of garlic, but garlic tastes amazing. It is just spectacular. All right, and then for honey, yes, honey, we're going to add 1 heaping teaspoon of honey. Now, this is a honey that I recommend. This is Keith's honey. This stuff is amazing. I got this at a festival. They had a booth. You can get this at Keith's, or go and check out their website. It's at keithshoney.com. But they are a local place out of Odom, Georgia. Their honey is amazing. Great flavor. Can't miss it. All right, so for salt, you want to add, and I'm going to do this with my fingers, okay? You're going to add a teaspoon of salt, and then a half a teaspoon of pepper. Smelling good. Well, not smelling good. Well, it does smell good in here, but it looks good, y'all. It looks good. So mix all of that together. And you want everything coated well. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm cooking my windows open. I should have closed my blinds. I am like distracted so easily. Like I see a car out of the corner of my eye, and my mom mode kicks in, and I'm like, what is that? So I naturally look. So bear with me. It is what it is. All right. Now, I got some fresh thyme and some fresh dill for this recipe. You're going to save the dill for when we do the fish, but I'm going to add a little bit of thyme right now. And basically, thyme is very easy. It's like this. And all you have to do is just grab the tip. Look at that, I lost all that time. Grab the tip and pull down, and the thyme is just gonna fall right off. So it's not difficult. People look at it and they're like, oh my God, how do I get the thyme off of there? That's it. Take it like that, pull down, and all of those leaves are going to fall in there. And you can do a massive amount. You can do whatever you want. I put about, I'd say a teaspoon, by the time I pull all these off, a teaspoon of thyme. Now, if you don't want to take the time, just, get it? Take the time. Didn't mean to do that. if you don't want to take the time to get the time off, you can merely just put the whole thing in there and then pull that out once you have cooked the meal, so you're not sitting there chomping on a vine or a stem, whatever you want to call it. It's not a vine, I guess, it's a stem. And do that. So put you some thyme in there. And then we're going to be ready to throw this in the oven. All right, we've got our thyme in there. We've got everything thoroughly mixed. And I'm going to go ahead and say this so that no comments are made. Y'all don't judge me on my video making skills. I am not a professional videographer. What I can do is cook in my kitchen. You always have to deal with the bloopers and the blunders and the okay, because, well, that happens in real life. All right, so everything is mixed together. This is what it looks like. Doesn't that look yummy? Now, what you want to do is take this, throw it in the oven at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. That's going to give time for those tomatoes to kind of burst real good. The flavors are going to marry together. So we're going to take this, pop it in the oven, 400 degrees for 15 minutes, and then we'll be ready to start the fish portion. Okay, so while my tomatoes are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and start my Brussels sprouts that are going to go along with our dinner. Now, in my pan, and once again, I need to turn you. In my pan, I've added just a little bit of olive oil, not much, and then my secret ingredient is bacon fat. Yes, so tasty. This is from some bacon that I had just fried earlier. So I'm going to add just a tablespoon of bacon fat. And that's going to give it another depth of flavor to my Brussels sprouts. Now, I took my Brussels sprouts already. I cut them in half, and then I cut one medium onion and sliced it really, really thin. You could dice it if you want to dice it. I prefer the thin slices. Again, I like to bite into some onion. So what I'm gonna do is melt all this grease. And it doesn't really add a lot of grease to the bottom of the pan, which is good. And I'm just going to add my onions in there and start with them first. We want to cook the onions until they're kind of a little soft. You don't need to get them to the translucent stage because you're going to add your Brussels sprouts into it and they're going to continue to cook while the Brussels sprouts are cooking. Okay, so these onions have been cooking for a few minutes. They've got a nice color coming to them. So what I'm going to do now is add in my Brussels sprouts. A lot of people don't like Brussels sprouts, and I don't know why. I kind of feel like if you like cabbage, you would like Brussels sprouts, because, I mean, to me, it's like a mini cabbage. But some people say it has a different flavor. I don't know. It tastes the same to me. What do you think? You kind of tell me and let me know. So I'm going to toss these in the onions and the oil. And I'm going to add some Morton's Nature Seasoning. This is a great seasoning blend. It adds some good flavor to it. I'm also going to add a little pepper, probably about a half a teaspoon. Don't want it too spicy. And then I'm going to add some salt. Now you'll need to check your salt once you've tossed this around a little bit, because Morton's does have salt in it. I already know what it's going to taste like, so I'm going to add a little bit more salt for my flavor in there. All right, and we're going to continue to toss this around. And we're going to start letting these Brussels sprouts cook. Now, as with anything, any cook is going to tell you, taste, 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 taste. Taste as you go along. You might want to add a little more salt. You might want to add a little more pepper. It's just going to be your taste preference on what you like. This is the basics. You can go up from here. There's no rule that says you can't add more. All right. And in addition, I'm going to add a teaspoon of garlic in here. And then what I'm going to do is put a lid on it and let it cook for probably about 10 minutes or so. Then I'll check the firmness and see how it's doing, and then we'll kind of go from there. Now, what I will say is that I have tried in the past frozen Brussels sprouts. No. That is something you don't want to do. Unless you like mushy Brussels sprouts, some people might. No. I like my Brussels sprouts to still have a firmness to them, a little bit of a crunch with a minute amount of softness. But I don't want to bite into a mushy, like really mushy Brussels sprout. So again, I'm going to place a lid on this. I'm going to let it cook for about 10 minutes. Putting the lid on it, you can do it two ways. If you want to cook it uncovered, you're going to have just a little bit more crispness, is how I look at it, to the Brussels sprout. If you want to soften it a little, you want to put a lid on it in the beginning and then take it off and finish it uncovered, which is what I do. So I'm going to put a lid on it for 10 minutes, let it cook and soften for a little bit, and then we'll come back. Okay, so these have been cooking about roughly 10 minutes. They are getting a little tenderness to them. To impart a little more flavor, I want to add 2 tablespoons of butter. That's going to give it kind of a richness, and it's also going to help in the sauteing. Butter is good in everything. Don't let anybody fool you. You can buy those fake butters all day long. If you have to use them, that's good. Use them up. But there will never be a substitute for 100% real butter. That is all I buy in my house, is 100% real butter when I am cooking. I do occasionally buy like some country crock or something to put on my toast, but when it comes to cooking my food, I will never substitute. I will always use 100% butter. So our tomatoes came out of the oven, our 15 minutes have passed, and I just want to show you what it looks like. Okay, you see them nice and bursted. Okay, everything is together, blended very well. So now it's time to add our halibut, and I'm just going to make space for the halibut. Now you're going to have some juice in here, of course, just because tomatoes are a water-based vegetable. So you're going to have that in there. My halibut is about this thick, so it's not exactly as thick as I wanted. But let me wash my hands off real quick. Not as thick as I wanted, but thick enough to make a portion for tonight. So I'm going to take my fish. I've got it here in the pan. And what I want to do is top that with some of our tomato mixture on top. This is going to add some more flavor to the fish, and it's going to also help it retain its moisture because we are going to cook this uncovered, and we don't want the fish to dry out. Okay, so our fish is in there, and then what I'm going to do is top that with some dill. And I've got fresh dill that I'm just simply going to tear off and place it on the fish. And I mean, some people could sit there and cut it up if you want to and make it real fine. I like dill. Dill has a good flavor. So I'm just going to tear it up and throw it on top of my fish. And then what we're gonna do is throw this back in the oven, and it's going to cook for 10 to 12 minutes, depending on the thickness of your fish. I have smaller portions, so it's probably gonna take 9 or 10 minutes on this fish. But if you had a thicker portion of fish, it would probably take 12 minutes, roughly around that. So we're gonna pop this back in the oven for 10 to 12 minutes. And there it is. Okay, so Brussels sprouts are finished. I added a little more salt to them to add a little more flavor because I felt like it needed more salt. So now I've put a half a stick of butter in this pan along with a tablespoon of garlic, and I'm gonna start my shrimp. Okay, so I bought shrimp that was already peeled and deveined. It still has the tail on it, which makes it easier for grabbing, but it's peeled and deveined. So I'm going to pop that into the pan. And then you can add some salt and pepper. This one has a little whisker in there. Don't need that. And then I have, because I love it, but if you go online to Carol's Sausage Company, they have this garlic butter seasoning. So good. So I'm going to add, well, let's do the bigger side. I'm going to add a little bit of that. And the reason I like it is it has a good garlic butter flavor, along with some peppers in there, some red pepper to give it a little kick. And basically, that's it. We're gonna toss these shrimp around until they're done. I will finish them off with a little bit of parsley at the end. They'll be ready to serve. Okay, so my shrimp are cooked all the way through. I'm going to top it with some parsley for a little color. And those bad boys are done. All right, our fish is also done. So I am going to get that out of the oven. Doesn't that look amazing? All right, we're gonna plate this and get it all together. And you'll see the finished product. Okay, so we are all finished with our dinner, and here is our finished product. We got our roasted Brussels sprouts, our halibut, our shrimp. Doesn't it look good? And of course, a baked potato. So, bon appetit. And as always, if you like this recipe with all its crazy bloopers and everything, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. I'll also put the links to all the products that I used or recommended in the description box below. But until then, have some great times in your kitchen. Make memories with your family. After all, it's all about love on the plate, y'all.